What's going on, guys? This is Miasin. So yesterday I made a video on the best side deck cards for going first, and today I wanted to touch on the best going second side deck cards because those ones might be the most important ones. Of course, before this video starts, you already know the drill. Friendly reminder to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate you in advance. And now let's get right into it. Alright, so the first one I will be discussing is Crossout Designator. Now you might be thinking, but doesn't really look too great. Now the interesting thing about Crossout Designator is that in theory it can negate literally anything. It can negate Dark Ruler, it can negate Anti-Spell, it can negate a Pointer of the Red Lotus, it can negate Dimensional Barrier, as long as you're playing at least one copy of the card that you're trying to negate. So if you know that one super specific blowout card is being used against you to destroy you, all you have to do is tech in one of those cards in your side deck and side in 3 copies of Crossout, and you'll be fine. And the cool thing about Crossout is that if you're already playing a lot of hand traps, you can cover a lot of ground. And Crossout Designator is inherently very, very good in mirror matches because you're already playing the same deck, so you can negate all the engine cards. Imagine if you're in a Splight mirror match and you can negate your opponent's Splight starter. That's amazing, right? Next up would be Droll and Logbird, which is not generic. I would not main deck the card. However, siding it could make sense because it is really good against Danger tier elements. They have to draw a lot of cards with the Danger monsters, of course. And it is relatively nice against Adignister and other decks, like even Flunderies, for example. Alright, after that we have some classic staples that people always considered in the side deck, and those would be Pancreatops and Zooking Alpha. I want to say Pancreatops absolutely has to be in your side deck. It is one of the best one-of monsters in the entire game. It really has to be there. However, Zooking Alpha doesn't necessarily have to be in your side deck because it only has some form of applications against some certain decks. So, for example, against Splight, if they're not summoning Dupe Frog, Zooking Alpha can be nice because you inherently summon Zooking Alpha, you jump over Toad, and then main phase 2 use the effect of Zooking Alpha to bounce back one of their cards. You have turn player priority, so even if they chain the effect of Elf to attempt to revive back the Toad, you still bounce it back, and then you can summon the Zooking Alpha right away, which is actually ridiculous, right? And then next up are kind of obvious ones. That would be Sphere Mode and Lava Golem, but they're not super generic because they take up your normal summon. So the best decks to utilize Sphere Mode and Lava Golem would probably be Eldritch and maybe Altergeist because they can live without their normal summon. It's fine. Whereas if you're trying to play this in, let's say, Splight or Tier Elements, it might not be as good, even though those cards are so good that you can sometimes afford to pass on your normal summon, break your opponent's board, survive for a while, and you should be fine. Next up on the list is an extremely interesting side deck card that people usually don't think about, but that would be Astral Kuribo. This is very similar to Mystic Mine because if you're using another level 4 monster as well as Astral Kuribo to make Crooked Crook, your opponent literally cannot jump over or get rid of your Crooked Crook since it is indestructible by battle as well as unaffected by card effects. So unless your opponent can deal piercing damage, attack directly, inflict damage, or link it off for Underworld Goddess or Kaiju it, it's basically going to be GG. However, you have to be extremely careful on which deck you are siding Astral Kuribo against because if they have only one out, then you basically lose the game. Next up would be a staple that is not as stapley as I thought it would be because you kind of need cards in your extra deck and sometimes even in your side deck in order to make it function, and that would be Ultimate Slayer. Ultimate Slayer is fantastic against 2 kind of decks, the decks that utilize Link monsters and the decks that utilize Fusion monsters. Against Fusion decks, you send Elder Entity Entis, bounce back a Fusion, and then use the effect of Entis, destroy another card, so it is a 1-for-2 trade. And against Link-based strategies, you bounce back the Link, and then you send the Evil Twin Trouble Sunny, you banish it, you send the main deck Evil Twin monster from the deck to the grave, and then you send another card on the field to the grave with the effect of Trouble Sunny. So again, it is a 1-for-2, however, this time you do have to play 1 bad card in order to make the card function. Alright, now for 2 obvious side deck cards, and those cards are even main decked right now, especially in Tier Elements. Those would be Dark Ruler No More and Super Poly. So Dark Ruler obviously going second against basically any combo or mid-range deck is really nice. Except against Mathmech and Adignister, then Dark Ruler does nothing. But against, the other decks, it's ridiculously good. It's kind of like a 1-for-3 trade because they lose multiple negates in one shot. It's not once per turn, so even if it gets hit by Judgment and you draw another one, you're fine. Super Poly can't even get negated. Even if your opponent has a Pointer of the Red Lotus, you can still chain Super Poly to it. And again, same thing with Anti-Spell, you can always chain. Super Poly is an absolute blowout, and it's really good. It's got actually better because of Garura, which is arguably the most generic Super Poly target in the whole game. And next up are some extremely frustrating cards. So it's the trio of Mystic Mine, Demise of the Land, and Metaverse. These cards could be sided in going first or going second. It really is up to you, but kind of a no-brainer how blowout of a card Mystic Mine is. So if you can supplement it with Demise of the Land or Metaverse, you're going to be blowing out your opponent even more. And last but definitely not least is one of my personal favorite that I believe should be in everyone's side deck, and that is Evenly Matched. So because of the fact that not every deck can make Omni Negates, they can make a lot of interruptions for sure, but not Omni Negates, Evenly will usually make your opponent lose a bunch of cards. And again, if they're sitting on anti-spell, it doesn't necessarily protect them from Evenly because it's a trap card, so it's a little harder to stop, and it's a huge blowout because it banishes face down, and you still have 5 other cards to play with. You still have your normal summon. So main phase 2, if you only have to be afraid of like one card, it might not be enough and you can definitely destroy your opponent. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the best going second side deck cards. Let me know your thoughts about this video and the best side deck cards that you are utilizing to destroy the meta in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.